Jaylen Waddle, how does he find his way on this list?
Yeah, so he was the 6th best wide receiver in first downs per route run last year, also top 5 in yards per route run. Anytime you get into the per route metrics with Jaylen Waddle, it's going to blow your face away. And that's because he's awesome. Look,
yeah.
Why did it feel disappointing to have Jaylen Waddle on your fantasy team last year? Really 2 reasons. One is that he only went over a 70% route share in 6 games last year. That was because he kind of was getting knocked out of a lot of games early with all these minor injuries. There were a few games early in the season after he'd had a concussion where it seemed like the Dolphins were being really cautious after the whole Tua experience the year prior, just with that how much they're going to push these guys to come back from head injuries. So yeah, as it came down to it, we really only had 6 really full games out of Jaylen Waddle. In those 6 games, he averaged 17.5 fantasy points per game. That would have ranked 7th best, and 83 receiving yards per game. That would have been 10th best. So I understand Jaylen Waddle didn't feel like having a wide receiver 1 on your team last year, but whenever he wasn't having all these weird kind of unlucky things happen to him, he was that. And I mean, Waddle just has an extremely long track record of hyper efficiency as well. Even going back to his college career, his first 2 seasons were back-to-back top 5 finishes in yards per route run in the NFL. He was incredible in Scott Barrett's favorite metric that he always makes me shout out, which is depth adjusted yards per target over.
You don't
expected.
have to do on this podcast. Man. You don't have to do anything that Scott Barrett makes you do. Okay, let's just be super clear about that.
Of course, yes. But yeah, so basically, Jaylen Waddle on a per route basis, on a per anything basis, Jaylen Waddle is just unbelievable. The other reason he didn't feel great to have in fantasy last year was really just touchdown luck. So over the past 3 seasons, wide receivers have scored a touchdown for every 166 receiving yards on average. For Waddle last year, that ratio was 1 touchdown for every 254 receiving yards. And this is on the Miami Dolphins. This is on one of the premier passing offenses in the NFL. He just kind of ran cold on touchdowns, and that's really all there is to it. Now he is significantly cheaper. I want to draft a lot of Jaylen Waddle this year.
Always what we're doing with fantasy football, with football, we're looking at small sample sizes and trying to draw big conclusions. And that's kind of why I posed the question. I'm sure you will not be the last person. You're not the first person that I posed this question to on this podcast, because it's something I'm really struggling with. Because I will say this, if you want to go with like kind of your thought on this, like you look at ADP last year, like all of these 1B receivers were really pushed up the board. This year, they're not. This year, they're not. Waddle is 20 off the board in terms of wide receivers. Devontae Smith, 23. T. Higgins, friggin' 27. So, yeah, man, it's like you're getting a discount potentially on these players if everything hits.